The rain came down hard the morning they took me away, not the gentle kind that sings on rooftops, but a heavy, merciless downpour that seemed to wash away everything I had built, everything I had lived for. Daniel wouldn't even look me in the eyes as he signed the final papers. His wife, Clarissa, stood beside him with a smug smile, clutching her designer purse like it was more valuable than the mother-in-law she was discarding. "Mom," Daniel finally said, his voice dipped in false sweetness, "this is for your own good. You'll be comfortable here. You'll get the care you need." Care, comfort. Such pretty words, but I could see the relief in his shoulders, the way his lips twitched when the director of the nursing home thanked him for entrusting me to them. He wasn't leaving me in care, he was abandoning me. I wanted to scream, to tell him I wasn't weak, that I didn't need strangers to watch me rot away, but my voice caught in my throat. Grief had a way of stealing sound, and after losing David, my husband of 47 years, I had little left to fight with. Clarissa leaned close when Daniel stepped away to answer a phone call. Her perfume was sharp, suffocating, like poison disguised as flowers. "Well," she whispered, "now the house is finally ours. You'll be here where you belong, don't worry. Margaret, these places don't keep people like you around for long." My blood ran cold. I clutched the armrest of the wheelchair so tight my knuckles burned. I wanted to spit back at her, to claw at the lies wrapped in her voice, but instead, I swallowed the anger, because deep down, I knew something Clarissa didn't. I was not done. The nursing home smelled of bleach and boiled cabbage. Every corridor hummed with fluorescent lights, buzzing like angry bees. The walls were lined with faded paintings of flowers that never bloomed, skies that never cleared. The first night, I lay awake in a too-small bed, the sheets stiff with starch. From the room next to mine, a woman moaned all night. Down the hall, a television blared old game shows at a painful volume. It wasn't a home. It was a waiting room for death. Every morning an aide with tired eyes wheeled me to the dining hall. Trays clattered, silverware scraped, and somewhere in the chaos, people cried out names of children who never came. I watched it all, silent, shrinking into myself, but silence does not mean surrender. I studied everything: who visited whom, which staff cared, which staff cut corners. I noticed when the director smoothed his tie before meeting donors, when the nurse scribbled in charts without looking at patients, and every evening, I whispered to David, as if he still sat beside me, "You knew, didn't you? You knew they'd try to throw me away. What did you leave me, my love? What did you hide from me?" When the loneliness gnawed too hard, I closed my eyes and returned to the life I once had. Our house on Maple Lane, with its blue shutters and the oak tree that David planted when Daniel was born, the smell of his pipe smoke on cold evenings, the sound of his laugh rolling through the halls. Daniel had been different once, a boy who ran into my arms with scraped knees, who cried when his father missed the baseball game, who swore he'd never leave me when I was old. But time had sharpened him, Clarissa had polished him, and together, they had carved me out of their lives like a tumor. The thought burned like acid, but even as I grieved, I remembered David's words, spoken not long before he passed. "Margaret, if they ever try to take your dignity, don't let them. I've left something behind. One day, you'll find it." At the time, I thought he meant memories. Now, I wasn't so sure. 3 weeks into my exile, the nurse wheeled me into the lounge for recreation. Bingo cards lay abandoned on plastic tables. A piano sat dusty in the corner, its keys untouched. That's when she appeared, a social worker with kind eyes but a sharpness in her step that told me she was no stranger to cruelty. She greeted the staff with a polite nod, then knelt beside me. Double quotes, "Mrs. Matthews," she asked softly. I blinked. "Yes." She leaned closer, her voice barely a breath. "Your husband trusted me years ago. He said if this day ever came, I'd find you." My heart stuttered. "David." From her leather satchel, she pulled a faded envelope, its edges worn, its seal cracked but intact. She slid it into my trembling hands. Inside were paper share certificates from a company David had started in the 70s. Back then, it had been nothing more than a gamble. But now, my breath caught. Evelyn smiled. "Today, these are worth over $70 million. I nearly dropped the papers. $70 million. Her nod was calm, steady. "Your husband planned for this. He wanted to make sure no one could touch what truly belongs to you." Tears welled in my eyes, not for the money, but for David's love, echoing across time, protecting me even now. From that day forward, Evelyn became my shadow. Every week, she visited under the guise of routine. Every visit, we worked quietly, carefully. She filed forms that looked harmless but were power of attorney transfers. She made calls using staff phones under excuses of insurance checks. I learned to hide my strength beneath frailty. I let Clarissa believe I was fading. Let Daniel think I was forgotten. The more invisible I seemed, the safer our plan became. But some nights, when the walls pressed in and despair whispered, I held the envelope to my chest and whispered, "Not yet. They'll see who I really am." Clarissa visited once during that time. striding into the nursing home with heels clicking like gunshots. She looked around with disgust before leaning down to me. "Rot here, old woman," she hissed. "Soon enough, you'll be a memory, and when you're gone, Daniel and I will finally have the life we deserve." I said nothing. I only smiled, because if she looked closely, she might have seen it the glimmer of fire that no nursing home walls could contain. Daniel never visited, not once. But that was fine, because when the day came, he would see me again, not as the weak old woman he abandoned, but as the storm his father had prepared. The morning of the reading came with a pale gray sky, the kind that holds its breath before a storm. I was wheeled into the small chapel inside the nursing home, where families often gathered to mourn. But today, this room would host a very different kind of reckoning. Evelyn stood at my side, steady and calm, her hand on the back of my chair like an anchor. Across the room, Daniel and Clarissa swept in with the confidence of people who thought the world bent to their will. Clarissa's diamond earrings glittered, catching light like daggers. Daniel didn't meet my eyes. The attorney, Mr. Harland, an old friend of David's, cleared his throat as he shuffled the papers. "We are here today for the reading of David Matthews' final instructions and the execution of his estate. There are matters that must be addressed." Clarissa leaned forward, lips curved in a smug smile. I knew she expected to hear of the house, the bank accounts, perhaps even my removal from the will. She saw this as her coronation day, but the storm was about to break. Mr. Harlan read slowly, his voice firm, deliberate. "To my beloved wife, Margaret, I leave not only the memories of a life we built together, but also full ownership of all assets, properties, and shares accumulated under my name. I trust her judgment more than anyone else's in this world. What is mine will always be hers." Clarissa gasped. Daniel sat back, his face pale, his lips parting in disbelief. "That's," Clarissa stammered. "That's impossible. She's incompetent. She doesn't know what to do with money. She can't even walk." I straightened in my chair, meeting her eyes with all the strength I had hidden. My voice, though frail, cut through the air like glass. "I may not walk as fast as you, Clarissa, but I can still stand taller than you ever will." Gasps fluttered around the room. Evelyn placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Mr. Harlan continued, "To my son, Daniel, I leave a lesson. One, I hope he learns before it is too late. A man who abandons love and loyalty for greed will always find himself empty, no matter how full his pockets." Daniel's fists clenched. "This is a joke. My father would never." But Harland raised a hand. "The documents are legal. His signature is clear." Clarissa lost her composure. She stood, her voice shrill, echoing against the chapel walls. "You can't do this. You don't deserve it. You're nothing but a wrinkled old woman waiting to die." Silence fell. I let her words hang, their poison filling the air. Then I smiled, not a smile of weakness, but of victory. "I may be wrinkled," I said softly, "but I am not finished. And unlike you, Clarissa, I know what love is. That is why David trusted me. That is why you will always be on the outside, clawing for scraps." Daniel reached for her arm, but she shook him off. The fury in her face was unmistakable, but beneath it, I saw fear, because for the first time, she realized she had no power here. When the meeting ended, Evelyn wheeled me into the courtyard. The autumn wind was cool, carrying the scent of wet leaves. Daniel followed us, his steps heavy. Clarissa stayed behind, muttering curses under her breath. "Mom," Daniel's voice cracked. I didn't know Dad left you everything." I turned, looking into the face of the boy I once cradled, the man who had betrayed me. For a moment, my heart ached with the memory of his childhood laughter. But then, I remembered the day he abandoned me in this place. "You didn't care to know, Daniel," I whispered. "You cared only for what you could take, and now you have nothing." He knelt beside me, tears streaking his cheeks. "Please, Mom, I was wrong." Clarissa pushed me. But it was me too. I was selfish. "Don't leave me out of your life." For a long time, I said nothing. Evelyn stood silently, watching. Finally, I spoke. "You chose her over me. You chose greed over love. That cannot be undone with tears." He lowered his head. Broken. In the weeks that followed, Evelyn helped me transition out of the nursing home. With David's assets secured in my name, I purchased a quiet cottage by the sea, a place filled with sunlight, far from the gray halls of despair. I invited some of the residents from the nursing home to visit, to give them a taste of joy they had been denied. Together, we shared meals, laughter, and music, filling the rooms with life again. As for Daniel and Clarissa, they moved away, their marriage fraying under the weight of disappointment and debt. They had built their hopes on my downfall, and without it, they crumbled. One evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon, I found myself sitting by the window, with David's envelope in my lap. Inside, beyond the shares and legal documents, there was a small folded note I had not noticed before. I unfolded it with trembling hands. "My dearest Margaret, if you are reading this, it means life has taken a cruel turn, but remember this, They can take your freedom, they can take your comfort, but they can never take your strength. Trust Evelyn, trust yourself, and when the storm passes, you will still be standing. Forever yours, David. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I pressed the letter to my heart, whispering into the fading light, "You were right, my love. I am still standing." Family is not defined by blood alone. It is defined by loyalty, love, and respect. Greed can corrupt even the closest bond, but love will outlast betrayal. And sometimes, the greatest revenge is not anger, but living well.